why am I going into this? I'm going into this because at this moment, what I'm talking with KPMG and other organizations is how do we create an AI-enabled audit? And you'll see that companies are spending a lot of money, but it's not very clear what they are. So what are the areas of AI in the 90s? Natural languages, cognition and learning, vision, machine learning. And what happened in the mid-80s, that this area, expert systems, came in from suggested originally by a professor called Feigenbaum in Stanford, and became like 70%, 60% of all AI research. And this is the thing I was talking before about eliciting knowledge, what we call knowledge engineering. And so when we were at AT&T, we did an expert system. CPaaS is an expert system. Okay, but these were the areas of AI. And I think I mentioned this before, expert system became the most popular of AI. We published the 6 books on AI in expert systems. Now we have a big, big change. And the big change is this. And now I want to ask you a question. How important and what can generative technology do? Like ChatGPT, what can it do? It's automatic communication. And is that important or not important? Actually, what I heard several people saying is that the menial tasks go with RPA and automation. And it's the more middle jobs that go with this, corresponding with clients, the kind of things that require intelligent queries, etc. Meaning, I don't know the answer. This is just a discussion, I think, for everyone to think, because this is going to affect you. The other thing I'm going to say is that most of these dramatic changes, electricity, internet, trains, the plow, they are called GPT, general purpose technologies. Most of these things that came in took a while to develop. And what happened, they affected employment. Employment went down and then went up. And all these new classes of jobs reappear. And there are 2 types of jobs that reappear. One type of job is doing something that you did before differently. The other type of job is doing something that you didn't need to do before. Like, for example, I always talk about cell phone, but the same thing with robots. How many people fixed a robot 30 years ago? 0. Now you have to have a robot repairman. How many people fix telephone? And then how many people develop these queries, what they call prompts on GPT? No one, but now people are doing it. I think generative technology is going to be changing everything. Every piece of software you're going to use will have a co-pilot or a way to talk to it. So guys, use it, okay? And you don't need to take a course to do it. You're going to see a couple of my slides here. I generated them yesterday. And yeah, you have to be aware that the thing makes some mistakes. They call them hallucinations. But most of it you would spot if you pay attention. So that's actually the big question that I think is going to happen over the next 5 years. Now, what are these? These are what we call chatbots. What is something that converses? What's the big difference of ChatGPT to how you did things before? One big difference is human-like communication, and the other one, which is much bigger, is access to 1 billion tokens or 10 billion tokens, meaning access to information that has been there, is not secret, etc., but would have been very difficult for you to find. That's the big difference, is the conversational nature and this kind of multiple billion token access. And you have to tell that in the interview. When this guy will be looking for a job, I'm going to say, when you talk to the professors in other places, tell them, I taught audit analytics, I taught this thing here, and I can put technology in your course that other people cannot. And you have to do the same thing when you look for a job. I don't anticipate any of you, let's say 90% of you, to have any problem finding a job. I think the demand is going to explode. Now, back to these things, I just pulled and said, what are the 3 top chatbots? And it was modest. It didn't say me. I was using ChatGPT version 4.0. It said Gemini, Copilot, and Claude. All of these you can use for free if you use a little bit. And ChatGPT 3.5 is free, 4.0 you have to pay. And they are creating versions of these things. And it's going to be a huge market and is already totally expert. Now, this is what I was reading on the book. First thing is this thing, AGI. Have you ever heard that expression? Artificial General Intelligence. And this is this idea that there'll be a machine that is more intelligent than you and will dominate the world. And there are many versions of this story. And you see all these guys talking about this and fearing it. I don't think you should worry too much, certainly not in your lifespan. Okay, is it possible? Maybe. Maybe forms of thinking that are not carbon-oriented, you are carbon-oriented, may emerge basically on this development. But if you start thinking, like I have been doing this for 40 years, you are going to see that it's more complicated than it looks. It's reasonably feasible to do an intelligent, narrow application. And this book I was reading, I'm going to send you the name. This book I was reading was talking about very interesting. You develop something, you call it AI. After a little while, it's trivial. You don't think it's intelligent anymore. Pull your cell phone out and talk to your cell phone. Are you doing AI? Of course you're doing AI, but now you don't think it's AI anymore. Okay, and you know there are 10 things that you do on your, like use ChatGPT on your cell phone, you think it's AI. Soon you will not think. Do you think Google is AI? Okay, so the book talks about this famous AI guy saying, first it's AI. The moment it gets trivialized, no one thinks of it as AI. And that's, I think, what the direction things are going to go. Don't, at least not too soon, worry about general. Now, people ask me, are you afraid? This guy, Douglas Hofstadter, one of the big AI guys, went to talk at Google and said he's terrified about everything. I'm not terrified about everything, terrified about one thing: autonomous weapons with AI. That's the thing that's scary. because I know how fallacious AI is and how many times does a bad mistake, and weapons have to be controlled. And you cannot, you would think that the Chinese will be reasonable, intelligent about it. I think the Americans, despite of potential leaders here, are going to be, but I don't think the US has been pretty intelligent about controlling weaponry. Are you worried? You're worried about some other nation that just develops one or two and doesn't have the controls? That's so I am worried. The thing I'm worried is about AI, autonomous weaponry. That's what I call. Okay, and so so they have this thing, wide AI, which is AGI, and narrow AI. And I always say this, I have been going around, maybe I did around 8 or 10 lectures calling is not intelligence, is functionality. What can it deliver? And in auditing and accounting, it's particularly that you need to think about it. And this is the other thing I say, once intelligence with use becomes mundane, this is like, once you use your cell phone a lot and it recognizes your voice, it's just a feature. You don't worry about it too much. So that's kind of generic of AI. And just for you to see your future employer, what they are doing. Okay, Professor Alice in our faculty did a study much better than this, looking at what the firms say they are doing. KPMG has Clara. KPMG uses AI-based platform called Clara, which integrates data analytics, machine learning, and workflow. Deloitte Argus is the Deloitte AI tool. EY, Helix, etc. All of them has something that does, they call it AI. Now, if you talk to your friends that just graduated and are working in these firms, have you used Clara? Very different what the advertising say and what actually happens in the firms. Don't expect any major AI usage. Now, I think it's true that they are now at this moment spending billions of dollars of planning with generative technology. I think KPMG committed $1 billion to Microsoft, I think, or to ChatGPT. So you raise this issue, I just have it here. Okay, what can AI do in accounting and audit? So I broke it down. This is the more obvious one. And I know one of the firms, I think I'm sworn to secrecy here, that actually has made a study and have a list of thousands of things they do that can be automated. Now, a list of 1,000 things they do that can be automated doesn't mean that 1,000 things will be automated. There's a big difference between what can be done and what's being done. Meaning, I told you before that our robotic process automation, which automation that cannot be exactly called AI, that we had a lot of difficulty. We resolved the problem, and they still couldn't implement it because the systems were heterogeneous or didn't work very well. The partners didn't adopt it. There were 100 reasons why they haven't adopted. So even if they come up with a lot of automation, still the king of the crowd is the partner in charge of the engagement, and he decides. And then the firm needs to have the infrastructure, which they don't have yet. So I heard all these firms talking about 1 billion, 2 billion, all the big four are committing that much for generative AI. But I haven't heard a lot about improving their infrastructure. And so data analysis and predictive analytics is what we were just talking about, predictive analytics. Fraud detection and prevention. Now, auditing itself, the first part was mainly accounting. Auditing has these kind of structural differences inside it. Like I described the difficulty for RPA, you know, it's kind of a partner-oriented type of thing. Partner is the god on the engagement. He can do whatever he wants, although there are quality controls on it. And classifying firms by industry doesn't resolve the problem. Helps, but doesn't resolve the problem. So there'll be a lot of things to be done in the auditing area. And then other things in the accounting area, compliance and automated reporting, risk management, decisions, and this whole area of GPT. And so this is what I mentioned now. This is very good for you. Okay, less people available and more things to do. The standards, both for Europe, for the United States are emerging. China has standards coming in. For ESG, will inevitably incorporate ESG audit. Remember what an audit is. You haven't taken the audit course. An audit is not seeing if things are correct. Auditing is checking if the rules of auditing are being followed. So if the standards are antique, your verification is antique. And that's what needs to be substantially taught. And we don't have still ESG audit or cybersecurity audit large amount of standards and guidance. Now, do you know what GAAP is? GAAP? Never heard of GAAP? Generally accepted accounting practices. What was GAAP? GAAP was when they started setting financial reporting rules. They couldn't set a rule for everything. So what did they do? They created this term, GAAP. And auditors had to verify if things were being accounted according to general accepted accounting practices. And progressively, standards came out regulating GAAP. And the same kind of thing is going to happen with generally accepted audit practice for ESG, because they are not going to come up with rules immediately. Okay, and this is what I was telling you about that I was doing with ChatGPT. I was having a look at incomes. And as you see, the growth is reasonably slow. Now, who is yellow? Deloitte, largest firm. Then this is KPMG. I think this one is PwC. Yeah. Anyway, so now in 2004, 20 years ago, was about 6 billion. Now they are up to 16 billion. Not too much growth, correct? And I expect with ESG audit, etc., is going to grow. So I went to ChatGPT and ask it to make an estimate of ESG audit fees. And look at them. What do you infer from this? It was around 6 billion, and here is 10% of a billion. But it is going. And you put this on top of the other one and cybersecurity, you guys have jobs.